Hi, welcome to my blog post today. In today's video, I will deal with cross joins in relational databases. So if you have more than one table in your SQL statement, then the database has to perform a join. Depending on what kind of join, there are happening different things. So today we will take a closer look at a so-called cross join. And this cross join is applied by the database if you don't define any columns in these tables, which are normally used to assign the rows from one table to the rows of another table. So if you don't have these columns or you don't define these columns in your join, then you will receive a so-called cross join. A cross join, it's, well, a pretty simple concept. Well, the database takes all the rows from the first table and combines it, each of all the rows with all rows or with every row of the second table. So let's say you have two rows in the first table and two rows in the second table. Then row 1 from table A is combined with row 1 and row 2 from table B, and which are two rows as a result. And then the second row from the table A is combined again with both rows of table B. So another two rows. So the result is 4 rows. So you can pre-calculate the result rows of a cross join if you just multiply the number of rows from table A with the number of rows of table B. So let's say table A has 5 rows and table B 10. The result will be 50 rows. And if you have 2 rows in table A and 1 million rows in table B, then the result will be 2 million rows. So I've prepared also a small example here. You can download an SQL file from my web page, and there you have the same example as I do have here right now. So I have two tables. Table A looks just like this. It has 3 rows, 1, 2, and 3, and I just put 3 names there: Peter, Jane, and Bob. That's table A. And we have table B. Table B is just 2 rows, and we have also a number or ID here, 1 and 2, and some text in both rows. So if we want to, or if we put both tables, for example, as I do it here, just separated with a simple comma here in our from clause, the result will be a cross join. And that is because we don't have any columns or any assignment of columns here defined. So normally if you're working with an inner join, for example, you might have something as table A punct ID equals table B punct dot ID, something like that. And we don't have it here. We just have these two tables here in the from clause separated with a comma. And the database doesn't know a better way what to do with the data, and so it builds this cross join, which results in a combination of the 3 rows of table A, and the 3 rows are combined with, or are each combined with the both rows of table B. So we see it here. We have, this is row 1 from table 1. This is ID 1 and name Peter. And it's combined with the 2 rows from the other table. We see it here, 1 and 2. Then we have the row number 2 from table 1 also combined with row 1 and row 2 from the other table, and the same with the third row from table 1, which is also combined with the 2 rows of the other table. So the result is just simply, again, you just have to multiply the numbers of rows of each table. So 3 rows in table 1, 2 rows in table B. The result is 6 rows, which we see here. Well, that's one way you can produce a cross join. What we see here is, well, some kind of older syntax for accessing multiple tables and also for joining them. And there's another way you can create a cross join by just writing cross join between the two tables. So table A cross join table B. The result is the same. We also have the 6 rows, which are created just by combining each or all the rows from table A with each row in table B. So that's what a cross join is. So why do we need to know that? Well, one thing is, if you sometimes you can create a cross join, well, in a way that you haven't planned it, but it's it's produced. For example, if you do something like this, I just take the normal join syntax here and just say table A point AID is table B point BID. I mean, in this case, it's pretty clear, but if we, for example, the ID column in both tables is just called ID, then it might occur or happen in a much easier way. So what we have here is a real join right now, so the rows are just joined in an equal way. But for example, if you type the join condition wrongly, as I did it right now here, table A point AID is table A point AID. If I just do it like that, now I have 6 rows here, so I've created a cross join, but I maybe didn't want it to create a cross join. So, well, it's a good idea to work with this new syntax because you have to define a joining condition. So you can't forget this joining condition. If you are working with the older syntax, then this join condition is in the where clause. And if you don't define it there, then you are creating a cross join as well. So, well, what can happen, although you're using the new syntax, is a case like that you are just joining the same column of the one table with itself, then you create a cross join, of course, at that point. How do you recognize a cross join later on if you are doing some normal query? Well, normally it's that there are a lot of rows produced because of the cross join, and for that you receive very high values in your KPIs. So if you have revenue which is, I don't know, 100 times as it should be, then maybe you've defined some cross join in your join conditions somewhere, and you have to check all the conditions if it's working fine. So that's what can happen. A cross join, well, it might happen. Normally databases don't have really big problems with it. Of course, if you're joining, for example, a table with 1,000 rows with another table with 1 million rows and you're doing a cross join, then the result might be 1 billion rows, of course. That's a lot to produce for the database, but the databases are designed that it's possible that one user is doing, producing a lot of workload, and other users are not sensing it that there is such a workload on the database. So normally that should happen fine. Anywhere for you when you're running such a big query with a cross join, well, it could take some time, and if the result is too big and doesn't fit in some sorting area or whatever, then it could happen that that we are receiving some kind of error message that, for example, a temporary table space is full and the result, well, and then you don't receive a result. So that's the worst that can happen if you're using a cross join, and of course your result won't be correct. So that's pretty much the thing with a cross join. Sometimes you just want to have a cross join, and if that is the case, I would suggest that you then of course use also this new syntax, because if you're going here and writing cross join, then for me, for example, it's clear that the developer wants a cross join there, because otherwise he wouldn't type cross join there, just join or inner join or whatever. But if he types cross join at that point, then he probably really wants to have a cross join. And why could that be? Because sometimes maybe you want to, especially if you're working maybe not only with tables, but with more complex subqueries, you just want to have, for example, one row that you are calculating in the subquery combined with all the other rows in a different table. And for that, you can do a cross join between the table and this subquery. Or sometimes I had an example, it was a planning database, and I had to plan, I think it was month, it was store, and it was some kind of coast type or whatever. And the result, or the idea was that at first all those values, that means for each store and each coast type and each month, should be set to, for example, 0. And in order to do that, I just produced all the possible combinations, because that's what a cross join is. It's all the possible combinations between the two sets of rows in these two tables, or maybe 3 tables, depending on. So I did a cross join between store and the month. So it was, I think, 100 stores multiplied by 12 months. So we have 1,200 rows, and then multiplied with 20 coast types. So you have an amount of 24,000 rows. And each of the rows was initially defined with a value of 0. So that was also some kind of example. So sometimes you have the need for a cross join because you want to double or multiply some rows or whatever. So then you can just use it. Then you should write just cross join here. And sometimes it happens by accident that you create a cross join and you didn't really wanted it. Then, well, of course, you should correct it. So that was today's lesson on cross joins. I will put this example on my webpage, on the blog. You can download it and you can try it on your database as well. Should be working on all databases. I was working on MySQL today here, but it's possible just to run it on Oracle or SQL Server or whatever. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video today, and yeah, see you next week to another lesson.